This episode of the Local Hustlers podcast is brought to you by Audible. If you're listening to this podcast right now, then I'm going to assume that you would also enjoy listening to audiobooks. Whether you're interested in business, history, comedy, science fiction, or romance, Audible has thousands of titles for you to choose from. We want you to try out Audible for free, so if you head to our link, you'll get a 30-day free trial and a free book. So go to audibletrial.com/localhustlerspodcast to redeem your trial today. Again, that's Audible, AUDIBLE, trial.com/localhustlerspodcast.
You're listening to the Local Hustlers Podcast, East Valley Locals. Get connected with small businesses near you and dive deep into their stories, mindset, and motives. Entrepreneurs everywhere. Get ready to be inspired by business owners, entrepreneurs, and hustlers that you can relate to and learn from. And now, your hosts, Dallin Huso and Ridge Waldberg.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Local Hustlers podcast. This week, we're super excited to be here with Sarah Williams, who we've already had on the show talking about goat yoga a couple of months ago. So if you haven't heard that episode yet, make sure to go back after listening to this and listen to that.
I love that.
And I got another business for you guys.
We got another one. So we're here to talk about desert paddleboards, which came before goat yoga, right?
Right.
So we're getting the prequel now. So we're going to
right.
dive into that business, talk a bit more about that. Maybe at the end we can kind of talk about, how that kind of led into goat yoga. But take a couple minutes, introduce yourselves, tell us a bit about your background, your story.
I got a lot of backgrounds, so we might just have to choose what we're going to tap on. Okay. But I grew up as a swimmer, and so I love the water, and I always was trying to do different kind of like swimming things, and I swam Alcatraz, and I got second place swimming around Alcatraz, and so I was doing all this open water stuff, and I was teaching swim lessons like 8 hours a day, but that was a lot because that was a lot of crying kids, And I'm like, what else can I do with water that's like fun and doesn't wear me out so much? Mm-hmm. And I came up with paddleboards.
You just came up with paddleboards.
So it was kind of
a little more detail there, okay? So were you like on this open water swim? You're in the middle of the ocean in between San Francisco and Alcatraz. You're like, what am I doing? What if a shark came and I wish I had a paddleboard? Like, walk us through how you came up with.
Okay, like all of my businesses, they kind of start as a joke. So I was like, what if we just do paddleboards in Arizona? And people were like, surfing in the desert? That's kind of weird. And I'm like, it'll work. So I bought 2 paddleboards, okay? Used my tax refund, bought 2 paddleboards. And people rented those out so fast. And I'm like, crap, I need more paddleboards. So I ended up with about 5 paddleboards one summer. And I was getting them for wholesale, which was, they had a middleman still, but it was still costing me like $500. I'm like, I'm not making any money on this. Yeah. So I had to figure out how to get them cheaper. So I was like, maybe I can get them from China. Maybe I can import them like everybody else does. Okay, I have no supply chain management experience at all. So I get online and I start emailing companies in China and nobody would respond to me. I was like, what the heck? So then this ticket pops up for Shanghai. And so $350, Phoenix to Shanghai. And I'm like, I just need to go to China. So I bought it. And then I started emailing companies like, hey, I'll be in China on February 15th. Can I come see your factory? And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, come on over. So that's a whole nother story there. But if you want to go off on some other things from that.
Dive into that a bit more if you want.
Okay, this is pretty cool.
That's going for it.
This sounds like the story of Nike, he went over to China. That's how he got his in there. So
well, a lot of people don't take you serious unless you're ordering like 200 of something, right? And I didn't have much money. I had my tax refund, So like $5,000, and I'm like, I got to figure this out. So I go to China, and there's these Chinese people holding up a sign that says Sarah Williams. I got one of my Facebook friends to come. I just put on Facebook, who wants to go to China with me? And my friend decided to come. And so we get there, and we're like, okay, I guess that's who we go with. And we take this train out into China for 2 hours. It's a high-speed train, okay? And I just tell my husband, like, not sure where I'm going, but these Chinese people are taking me out in the country. So they take us around, and they show us their factory. And I got 3 kinds of boards the first time. I got epoxy boards that are the hard boards. And I realized pretty quick those aren't great for the desert. Those are more for like Lake Powell and fancy places where you're not going to run into stuff. And then I got inflatable paddle boards, and then I got these rectangular mats that I use for yoga. So I went to 3 different factories, and every person totally spoils you. So if you ever want to get like a free vacation, tell somebody in China that you want to buy something, because they don't want you to meet with other people, so they try to keep you busy the whole time. So they took us around to do all the Chinese like touristy things, went into some restaurants, and they cooked us special dinners and stuff. And I was like, I gotta buy something now. They're totally spoiling us. So that was a whole learning experience in itself, because I had no idea. Like, they call me and they're like, all of your stuff is in LA, a ship is here. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And they go, you need a customs broker. So I get online and I'm like, what's a customs broker? Just so you know, Arizona Customs Broker is great because it was so it was the first one I called, and they're actually lawyers. And so they set that all up, but because it sat in storage for a couple days, that cost me like $400 because I didn't have that plan all figured out. I also could have gone to Los Angeles and gone to the ship dock with a bolt cutter and figured out which one was mine, but I paid the $200 for the custom brokers to do it. And so that first shipment was a little tricky. I don't think I made any money on that, but now I have more paddleboards. And so then I can turn it more into a business because I'm renting them out more often. And then I've ordered for 5 years now. And so I have it down and I can kind of specialize what boards I want. So that's pretty cool.
So what's the lifespan of a board?
A rental board, I'm going to say probably 2 years, but the majority of people, and this is how I sell people on renting, they'll go paddleboarding twice a month during the season. So you could rent from me twice a month during the season for 3 years before you'd ever buy a board. Because you were just telling me you don't use your paddleboards much, right?
Right.
And a lot of people buy one paddleboard.
They're really big. And
They are. Yes. And you need somebody to go paddleboarding with you. So you have to have a couple paddleboards. So it's better to just rent them.
For somebody who falls in love, do you also act as a wholesaler to...
I do actually. So I have an order of 50 boards coming in. I'll probably sell a third of them. And this is what I've realized since COVID and everything shut down and people got out into nature. So I decided that people don't normally go out in nature, they're usually paying for entertainment, like they're paying for football games, they're paying for movies. Last summer, they decided that they were going to go be nature people. And so they were going to be nature people and they were going to buy all the stuff to do it. So last summer was my best summer ever. Which was pretty awesome. And so a lot of people would go paddleboarding once or twice and then they would buy their own board. So now my whole business model is I need to constantly be getting new clients because I figure most of the time people will go paddleboarding once a season if they like it, or if they love it, they're going to buy their own board. So I need to sell boards and I need to constantly recruit new clients. And that's why I do the paddleboard fitness classes.
So that acts as like a recruitment process for customers.
So I contracted with the cities, which is not easy to do, to be able to do these fitness classes. And in Chandler, I had to go in front of the Chamber of Commerce. I proposed I was a woman-owned business and that they should let me do this, And then for City of Mesa, I have to rent the pool out. And so I have to make sure I have enough people there that I can get the pool paid for, So that's all my own advertising.
So you do it in a pool, not a lake.
Right, and I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of people that rent out paddleboards, and a lot of them do classes at the lakes and stuff. But Tonto National Forest owns the lakes, and it's almost impossible to get a permit. So there's very few companies that can get a permit to do any kind of class at the lakes. So you can do it as a meetup, and you can go hang out at the lake, but you can't have an instructor out there that's like, I'm teaching a class for $30 because you'll get a ticket. I learned that. So with the city pools, Mesa loves it because they redid all their city pools over the last 10 years and they're beautiful. And a lot of people don't know that. So my favorite pool is Mesa High. And if you know where Mesa High is, it's kind of in a little area of Mesa that gets forgotten about, but there's a lazy river. And that's my favorite because you can turn the lazy river on and do water aerobics against the lazy river. And then they have a dive tank, and that's where I do my paddle boards. And then I was a CrossFit trainer for a long time. And so we do CrossFit workouts with swimming in it. So it's perfect workout for the summer. But those people that go to the city pool classes think the lakes and rivers are kind of dirty and sketchy, and they're not necessarily people that would go out paddleboarding. So if I can get them to come to the city pool, that sounds adventurous. Like, I'm going to do paddleboard yoga in the city pool, know? And they know the pool's nice and clean. And I could convince them that they'll be able to paddleboard. Then it's easier to get them out paddleboarding on the lakes and rivers. Because a lot of people have a bad, if you grew up tubing in Arizona, and you went out on the weekends, you don't necessarily have a good impression of the river.
Yep.
It's like swimming in the toilet.
It can be beautiful if you just go early morning, weekday, in the afternoon, you'll see horses and all kinds of pretty stuff. But they're two different clientele, the fitness classes and then the people that rent.
Interesting. But then do you try to talk to the people that come to the classes and talk to them about renting? Is that like a process that usually they go through?
I do. If they sign up for the whole summer, so I'll do 2 months and then I'll do another 2-month session. Then I give them a free outing on the river. And so then we'll go and we'll float down the river. Have you guys ever floated the river?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's way funner on a paddleboard, okay? So on a paddleboard, you go a lot faster because you have a paddle. A lot of people never stand up. They just sit. I call it fancy tubing to paddleboard down the river because people get so nervous. I'm like, you probably won't even stand up. You'll be fine. And so by the end of their exercise class session, I was like, okay, we're going to go paddleboarding on the river. And then it's just kind of neat because it's a lot of people that never do adventurous stuff, and suddenly they're like, look at me, I'm like out in nature, and I teach these women how to strap paddleboards on their cars, you know, and they're like, we're like I Love Lucy, we're so funny how we're doing this. It's the same story all the time. I can't believe we're putting paddleboards in our minivan.
So for the river, do you have to have a permit for that?
So I'm allowed to rent boards and people can take them to the river, and if I take people for free, that's okay.
Okay.
But if you have a guided outing, then you need a permit. So Saguaro Lake Ranch has one. And then there's a couple paddleboard shops, but the permit's for like 20 rentals once a month. So it's almost impossible to get. I apply every year. So Tonto, if you're listening, you should give me that permit.
So then do people just meet at the...
They'll just pick up the boards for me, and then they take them out on their own. And I have inflatable boards. So the only thing I can't do, this is a funny story. So these kids show up with a hatchback and they want 7 boards. They're 11 feet long. They're long. And I was like, guys, this is not going to work. We couldn't even fit inflatables rolled up into their car.
Yeah.
But most of the time you could take boards, blow them up when you get out there, which is a bit of a workout. It's a good 5-minute workout. Or I could strap them on a car. 2-door cars are a little hard, but if you have a 4-door car, we just open all the car doors and strap them through the car. And half-day rentals, $25. Full-day rentals, $35. Best
Not
price
bad.
in town.
Wow.
Not bad. Do you find that people, after coming to the class and then after getting the free ride, are they more likely to then want to come back and rent from you in the future?
I really feel like I have a niche market. And it's a lot of like moms. And I think so when I first started going to the river, husbands were like, you can't go out there, it's scary. But I think I went enough times and didn't die that husbands were like, okay, if you go with Sarah, it's fine. And that's kind of how my traveling is too. I did that China trip and my husband's like, you're just going to go to China? But I've done enough trips now and I don't die that people are like, all right, you can go, Sarah, if you go. So yes, definitely they get that confidence after and I have to ease them into it.
Yeah.
Like people email me forever, I really want to go to the river, but I'm scared. I'm like, oh. So once I give them that confidence that they can do it, and you could strap a board on a car. Because a lot of moms have been, you have 4 or 5 kids and that's what they've been doing. And then they hit 40 and they're like, I need to do something fun with my life. And paddleboarding is a great thing because it's like you're adventurous, but it's still pretty safe,
So speaking of the China trip again, I wanted to ask one more question about that. So you went out to China. Did you see a couple different suppliers, or did you just only see one? And what I was trying to ask is, like, how did you pick which supplier to go to once you were out there?
So I emailed a whole bunch, probably 20. And then a few really got back to me and were like, no, you need to come to us.
Yeah.
And so I picked those, but they were all over the place. I was not organized at all. So like I told you with goat yoga, there's never any business plan. I saw a ticket to Shanghai for $350 and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to Shanghai. So, and kind of funny story, I was kind of banned from China for a while. So I guess when you go to China, you have to have a visa, and it's a work visa, and it's a 72-hour visa. So before we leave, we're in Seattle and they're like, you need to buy a ticket to a third country of origin. We're like, why? And they're like, that's how the business visa works. So we buy a ticket to Hong Kong. We didn't have any intention to go to Hong Kong. Don't do this. This is bad. Okay. So we get to Shanghai and we only had 7 days there. And with the time changes stuff and all the factories we were visiting, we did not have time to fly to Hong Kong. So we're leaving China to go back to the States. And they said, you didn't fly to Hong Kong. And my friend goes, I was so sick. We could not take the flight. I was throwing up. She starts crying and they take us to this holding area. So we're about 4 hours. We're in this holding area and they come over and we can't understand anything. They go, you not come to China for 2 years. And then they get us on the right plane and fly us home. So I don't really know what happened if somewhere on my passport it said not allowed in China for 2 years, but it's been 4, so I'm good.
Wow.
So that's kind of like a little planning's probably good. I mean, we did buy the visa and all that, but you need to take all the flights that you say you're going to take.
That's hilarious. So are you, and I think the answer is yes, so maybe you can just expound on it. Are you just naturally like a go-getter person? And like, because a lot of people, they reach out to some suppliers and no one answers, and then they just, come up with another idea. But you got a flight to China and went out and met them yourself. So is that just something that's like natural for you?
My plan for everything is to pay back the idea. So like, have you guys heard of CrossFit? So CrossFit certification is expensive. It's like $1,500, and then I did CrossFit Kids, and that was another $1,000. And I told my husband, I'm like, I'm just going to pay back the certification. So I did CrossFit Kids and parkour for probably 7 years. Made all my money back, right? So same thing with this China thing. I'm like, this is going to teach me way more than college is going to teach me. So if I can go just make the money back that I spent on this trip, then I think it's worth it. You know what I mean? And what I maybe spent like only probably like $1,000 because they paid for everything. So I made that money back pretty quick,
The two parts of your business, the rentals versus the yoga. You mentioned other people offer classes. Is that yoga classes is that a common thing that paddleboard rental companies will offer?
So what I've noticed, not here, definitely in California, is the paddleboard companies will hire instructors to teach the yoga. But Lake Pleasant's the only place that has it because it's not at Tonto. So Tonto will not allow it. There'll be yoga instructors that will rent boards and they'll go out and they'll do it as a community thing. Because remember, you're not supposed to charge anybody for anything. So it was really lucky for me to get those contracts with the city. And nobody's I have no competition on that. And what I do, I have 50 boards. I just got those all in yesterday. I'm getting my shipments down pretty good now. And I'll have 30 at Chandler and 20 at Mesa, and then I'll rent out some. So Gainey Ranch rents them every year, and I charge $500 for the day, and they have their instructors teach stuff. So then it's like a customer appreciation thing. And the whole reason I started this was so my teenagers would work. I still end up doing a lot of the work, but I'll have my teenagers drive the boards out to Gainey Ranch or drive them out to wherever so that the instructors teach the class. And what I've noticed, I don't know if you know, but the fitness industry is very competitive, especially yoga teachers. And so I have instructors come teach for me, and they're totally fine to promote themselves because it's such a niche market and I don't really have any competition.
Yeah.
So they'll come in, like my friend Vanessa, she goes, "Hi, I'm Siren Yoga. I teach at these 10 other different places." And I don't care because people are coming for paddleboard yoga and she's not doing paddleboard yoga anyplace else, but she's a great yoga teacher. So they're going to go to her other yoga classes. Gotcha. So it really is helping trainers and stuff without me having to compete with them. Sometimes I'll do the boot camp that I do at Mesa High, CrossFit trainers will say, "Hey, we want to come do a CrossFit swim workout." And because I already rented the pool out, they'll come in and I can make some money off of them, and they'll use the pool and I just have to be there to cover the paddleboard part or whatever. So it's giving gyms other options of fitness things. So that's kind of fun too. Because it's hard to compete with everything. Might as well just join them,
No, that's really cool. Did you just networking with other people and just had the idea to just kind of bring them in and supporting your business, but also giving them some exposure as well? Right.
Because then when I was at that CrossFit gym for a while, I met a lot of CrossFit trainers. Yeah. And so that's kind of given me that network. But then all of those people will come rent paddleboards. Right. You know what I mean? That so many people have never been paddleboarding. If you go on Saturday, you wouldn't think that because there's a million people out there paddleboarding. But it's the same with goat yoga. I can't believe we keep filling these classes, but it's a city of 3 million people. There's more people. Yeah. And I just decided I just got to keep finding more people. You can't rely on your friends, you got to just keep finding more people to network with.
For sure.
I want to point out something. I want to point out your growth mindset because a lot of people with a fixed mindset think, if I give up this piece of the pie, I'm going to lose, right? If I partner with these CrossFit folks, if I partner with these yoga instructors, they're going to take away some clientele, they take away business. But I just love your idea of partnering and enlarging the pie. Basically, you are enlarging the pie. Yeah. And everyone's getting a bigger piece of the pie, including yourself. And that's a super important mindset to have for any entrepreneur, for any business owner, because no matter what business you're in, you're going to have competition. Right. And you can have the mindset of, I'm in it for me and I got to protect my clientele, I got to protect my intellectual property, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to help people, et cetera. And you'll find yourself very limited. And if you're somebody with this growth mindset and this giver mentality, helping other people succeed, it really comes back to benefit you, and I honor you, Sarah, for having that mindset and putting it into practice and helping these other people be successful. And it sounds like it's come back and helped you over and over and over.
Well, again. And you can't compete with everyone. There's always going to be something new coming up, And so whenever something does, I'm like, hey, good luck, and good luck to everybody that's doing it. And I don't want to work 7 days a week teaching paddleboard yoga. You know what I mean? If somebody else wants to try that, great. I still have my clientele. For sure. And I'm reaching, at goat yoga, I'm constantly I teach paddleboard yoga. I'm the ADD of yoga. And so the goat yoga people are she's so funny at goat yoga. I'm going to go to her paddleboard class. Yeah. And even if they come once, that's fine because they'll probably come back with a friend or whatever. So I figure every client's a one-time client. If they come back, most of them come back more. But if you have that mentality of right. I'm only going to see this person once, I got to find the next person, Yeah. And that kind of is my Iceland trip. So we have this Iceland trip coming up this summer, and it's been the restrictions are so strict. And I was at the point on Monday where they said, you need to have 4 more people or we have to cancel the trip. And I kind of got like, why can't I recruit people? Like kind of sad on myself, and then I don't know if you guys have read that 10 times mentality book. I just listened to it, but he's like, never quit. I'll look it up when we're done. That's probably my favorite book now. And I go, you know what? There's people out there that want to go to Iceland. The problem is you have to have a vaccine. So a lot of people probably don't want to go because they don't want to get the vaccine. And I'm like, I just need to keep getting out there and reaching out to more people. So I placed a couple ads. I put it on YouTube. I don't ever put anything on YouTube, And just this week I had 4 more signups. So like within 4 days of me going from maybe this isn't the year, maybe I should push it back to there's more people. There's got to be someone that wants to come, And they're just Instagram friends. They're people that follow me on Instagram and I do weird stories every day. And they're like, okay, this is perfect for me,
Yeah. Well, tell us more about, because I know you do a couple trips a year. Tell us more about like what they are, why you do them, what it has to do with the business.
Okay, so this is cool. So we started with Tahiti Trips. So my friend's from Tahiti and we went to Tahiti and we did like a Survivor Island getaway. So I've been on Amazing Race and I told you guys about Survivalist on Goat Yoga. So I've done a few reality shows. So I kind of have that resume behind me. And we went out to this island and we stayed for 2 days and you're trying to survive. Not really, because the Tahitians do all the work and like make sure you don't die. But you think that you're surviving on this island, right? And so we like, we should do a youth camp. And so we had this all set up last year, sold out 2 youth camps, got canceled, And so this year we have one in June and we have 15 kids signed up. And man, it's a lot of work to get to Tahiti. But what we're going to do, and it's so cool, is it's giving back to the local community. And it's nothing touristy. So we're going to these remote islands and just because she's from Tahiti, she's got all these connections, and it's like cash in hand to the actual business, not some big tourist company doing it. So same with the Iceland trip. This guy's in the northern part of Iceland. He owns a hotel. He's a chef, and he's going to be our tour guide the entire trip. So, and he's like, we're so desperate for tourism. It's been closed for a year. Yeah. So, it's giving back to the community. So that's how I wanted it different. And if people are like, oh, I saw at Costco, I can go get this trip. I'm like, go ahead, go stay in the Intercontinental, sit on your overwater bungalow. Don't do anything adventurous if that's what you want to do. But it's all adventure when we go. You're going to remote islands. You're like on these sketchy boats jumping off. Pretty fun.
That's fine. And so is there any correlation with the business? Like, is it sponsored by you? Or?
Well, so I bring these paddle boards down there, okay? And it's a lot easier. I don't know how legal this is. But so we bring the paddle boards down, and then it's a lot easier for them to use them at the places. So I tell them they can rent them out when I'm gone if they store them there. And so everything's like a paddleboard vacation. And that's how I made it go along with Desert Paddleboards. Because I have I have a big following, but it's for a bunch of different things. Yeah. And like I told you, people will buy their own paddleboard and then they're onto something else. So I need to keep people following me for other things. So if it's for paddleboards, they're not going to want to bring their paddleboard to Iceland. I'll have some there for you,
Yeah. So you already have paddleboards in Tahiti right now?
I do. I have 8 paddleboards in Tahiti at this cute little guy's house. He was so excited. And everyone, to get a paddleboard in Tahiti is like $1,200 with all of the fees to get it there. Yeah. Tahiti is not even on the globe. It's like 5 hours south of Hawaii. So it's out in the middle of nowhere. And he's so happy that he can have a little bit of extra income coming in. And they're my older boards, so I don't care, and we don't have to bring them back and forth. So it works out good.
Oh, that's awesome. Win-win for them.
For sure. I love hearing about the creative marketing ideas you have, the outside the box sort of thinking you do to find new customers. And like you mentioned, you have the mindset that you're only going to get someone once and then it's on to the next and trying to find new customers. So what are some other things that you do to try to find new customers?
Okay. This is my new thing for this year, okay? So there's this guy in Bora Bora, he's a photographer, and he's super bored during COVID. And he goes, I want to start doing mermaid photo shoots. And so we're like, there's a catamaran that has 12 people that will go from island to island and stop in Bora Bora for 3 days and do mermaid stuff, okay? So I need to become a mermaid expert, you guys. So in the last 2 months, I'm like, how can I be a mermaid expert? Because I need to sell this trip, okay? So I was a synchronized swimmer. Like, I kind of have the background, yoga teacher. It kind of goes along with mermaid. But you get on any kind of mermaid forum, it's like Renaissance Festival people, okay? They're really into this mermaid stuff. And so I need to make it a little more normal. And so City of Mesa's letting me do Mermaid Fitness. So I just bought the double flippers, and for 30 minutes of the workout they're going to do a mermaid swim workout, and then they're still going to do paddle boards and they're still going to do lazy river water aerobics. But I guarantee you guys I'll have this on the news in the next month, okay? And then I'm going to use that news clip and that'll promote my Tahiti trip as a mermaid expert. Let me tell you why Chandler said no, we can't do anything mermaid. It's a long weird story, but your feet cannot be tied together. I haven't heard the story yet, but Chandler won't let me do anything mermaid.
Really? And so
there's always a story behind it.
I got a lot of stories.
So the mermaids swim. Their feet are literally just tied together, and
No, I can't tie them. There's flippers that you put your feet in. So like if you were to do butterfly.
Okay, yeah.
And I think maybe half the class will actually do that. But when I get on the news, I'll have it all about Mermaid Fitness because the news likes anything weird. Yeah. That's how we get on for goat yoga. And I've been on for plogging and weird stuff like that. Oh, witches regatta. We'll have to talk about that also. But anything weird can get you on the news, and not very many people watch TV. So I just use that news clip. I promote it a bunch on social media, and then that gets it out there. And they're like, "Oh, she was on the news. She's so cool," you know?
Yeah, no, it's like more credibility than anything because, like you said, not a lot of people are watching the news, but you can use that clip and use it other places, and then people see that. How do you, when you do something like this to get on the news, do you just hope that someone's going to find out about it, or do you have people that you contact so that way the news covers it?
Well, I totally lucked out in that a few of the news people follow me on stuff, and sometimes they won't call me. Like for last year for Witches Regatta, I was like Channel 10. I emailed all my contacts. I'm like, you guys, I'm going to be at Tempe Town Lake with like 50 witches. So then they sent somebody out. So this year for my Mermaid Fitness, I'll contact them for sure. But a lot of times they contact me in the first week of June just because they need a story on something.
Oh, okay.
What's going on in your world?
Right.
They know who to get a hold of.
And I'm usually pretty funny and like lively. So, because a lot of times on TV, people are just kind of boring, you know. So I'm a good go-to filler story.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm super cool or anything. I'm just a good filler story.
For someone without those connections and wanting to get on the news, do you have any good recommendations for how they can get in touch with the right people?
So I love Natural Restorations. They're this cleanup group, and they go out to the river and they like totally clean up stuff. And she's like, we have been trying to get the news stations out here for 5 years. So I had gone to Sweden and I learned about plogging, picking up trash and jogging. And last year on Earth Day, I called Channel 10 and I was like, hey, let's do a story on plogging. And Natural Restorations is running a big event. And so I got with Natural Restorations. I'm like, hey, let's just do a cleanup and just pretend like you're plogging for this new segment. And they came out, and the Natural Restorations lady's like, how come I've been contacting you guys for years? And they're like, it's got to be entertaining. So whatever you write up, needs to be like a good story, just like America's Got Talent.
Yeah.
Sob story, happy story. But even if you're doing good, and it's especially with me, it's not about the talent, it's about the story.
That's awesome.
And that's the same way you get on reality shows. You just be entertaining.
Yeah.
Do you spend more time cleaning your pool than you spend swimming in it? Then call Flamingo Pools today. Flamingo Pools is your go-to swimming pool maintenance and repair company in the East Valley. Whether it's weekly maintenance, repairs, green to cleans, or one-time cleanings, Flamingo Pools will take care of you. Honest, reliable, and innovative. Just a few of the many good things Flamingo Pools customers have to say about them. Ask them about their mineral treatment, which will keep your chemical levels down, allowing you to have a healthier bathing experience. At Flamingo Pools, they know that your pool was made to be enjoyed, so let them handle the rest. Check them out at azflamingopools.com or give them a call at 480-422-6013. Mention this podcast and you'll get your first month of maintenance completely free. That's azflamingopools.com and 480-422-6013.
When it comes to like the two aspects of your business, so the rentals versus the classes, it sounds like rentals would be a little more hands off. Am I right in saying that? And if that is the case, is that like what's the reason for focusing on both rather than be like, oh, this is easier, more hands off. I just have to rent them out and they're good. Like why not just focus on one aspect of the business?
I don't know if you noticed, but I'm kind of all over the place. I think I would get really bored.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd get really bored if I was just renting all the time.
Gotcha.
And I like meeting the two different aspects of people for sure. And I can hire yoga instructors to teach the classes, so that's fine.
Okay.
I need to be there probably half the time because, like I told you, people are all out for themselves. When I'm there, I'm really making sure the connections and like, hey guys, follow me on this so you can keep up to date on everything I'm doing, So I don't trust anybody to totally run it. And I've learned that over the years. I've had business partners over the years, and I'm just like, I just want to do it all, which probably isn't the best. To make it an empire. It's just going to be me forever,
And you gotta be careful burnout with that.
Right. Luckily, it's seasonal, so that's good. And then goat yoga is relatively seasonal too. So goat yoga happened because nobody was renting paddleboards in Arizona, in October. So I was like, I need to make some money. So then we came up with goat yoga. And then goat yoga slows down a lot in the summer because it's hot, and that's when paddleboards are busy. So
Gotcha.
I like the seasonal part of it. I did try and like hustle with Canadians to get paddleboard rentals in the winter. It's not worth the effort. So nobody rents any paddleboards in the winter.
Okay, so I was going to ask about that if it was seasonal. So pretty much you don't do anything with desert paddleboards throughout the wintertime?
Not really. And so that's why I try to keep my Instagram entertaining with like, okay, I got this trip and I'm traveling and I'm doing hikes and things like that, you know, just to keep people interested in whatever I'm doing, you know?
Yeah.
And paddleboarding would just get boring if all I did was, hey, look, I'm paddleboarding again.
Earlier you mentioned that you do this a lot so your kids can be involved in working. Talk to us a little bit more about how you get them involved, how you get them excited about working in mom's business, because you know, sometimes parents don't pay their kids as
right.
much. Sometimes you might pay too much. But talk to us a little bit for other entrepreneurs out there that are in a family type of business. Maybe you can give a couple pointers on how you keep your kids engaged and keep the quality control up, etc.
So they all go through, so I have 23, 21, 17, and 14-year-olds. And about 17, they go through this like, I don't want to work for you. You're not fair, blah, blah, blah. And then they go get a job. And then they realize that I wasn't that bad. So like Marco's Pizza or something like that. They won't listen to this. Don't worry. They don't think anything I do is cool. But then my son, who's 23, he's like, hey, Mom, you think he's 22, sorry. Can I get some paddleboards and bring them up to Utah? Just now. You know how many years I've been offering this? So I'm going to give him 5 paddleboards and he's going to hustle in Utah. But it's taken that long for him to realize, okay, maybe she's got a good idea. And then they're kind of forced to do everything else. Like my 17-year-old went and got a job as a lifeguard last year and she realized, okay, Mom pays a lot more. And I don't think they realize that. Like they're sitting home, you know, like watching Netflix every once in a while, rent out some paddleboards, you know. But lifeguarding, you got to be there all day. Yeah. And so it takes them going to get a different job to realize I'm not that bad of a job.
So it has given them then that entrepreneur mindset themselves.
Well, I think it's getting there. Yeah. By 22 maybe.
Is it something that like you recommend to your kids or to just people that you talk to, just starting a business, owning your own business, or do you feel like it takes a certain sort of person to do it?
Well, that's hard because my husband's got like a real job with benefits and all that. So I think it's a perfect mix. Yeah. I really like having the 2 businesses because Goat Yoga pays into Desert Paddleboards and Desert Paddleboards is an S Corp. And so I like figuring out the tax law behind all of that because that's kind of important. Yeah. And I think every family should try to figure that out. Like somebody should have a business in the family just because it helps everything tax-wise also without going into tons of detail because I don't know all the tax law. But, you know, learning about that is definitely beneficial for sure.
And why an S Corp versus an LLC?
Goat Yoga makes a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't LLC. Desert Paddleboards was like a fun hobby. And then Goat Yoga makes a lot of money and I need to write it into Desert Paddleboards. So that's how I buy 50 paddleboards every year.
It's interesting.
So I had to make an S Corp over 50,000. You make an S Corp.
You mentioned that you had a pretty good year last year with COVID. Right when COVID started to hit, though, did you have any worries, concerns that you wouldn't have a good
I was so
summer? Funny.
I was like, this is the board. You don't have to touch me. And I would like make videos of me Lysoling everything. And I was like, non-touch pickup. Most people didn't care. But I did videos of like, here, you don't have to have any contact with me. Everybody just wanted to get out. Yeah. And so, but the forest was shut down.
The lakes were closed.
Yes.
April, May,
right?
There was a way to get on because the river wasn't closed. The road was. So you just couldn't park any parking lots. So like there was a way to do it. Not a lot of people did. When everything opened up, then it was super busy and it was awesome because tubing was closed. So this year I think people are going to be in for a big surprise because like I told you, it was people that didn't normally do outdoor stuff. They were normally being paid to be entertained. You know what I mean? Like they would pay people to entertain them. And so now they all have paddleboards and I think they'll be a little surprised when they're out there with all the tubers. It's a cultural experience. I tell families, don't go on the weekend.
Is it pretty easy for most people to pick up paddleboarding? Are there any tricks people need to learn in terms of like...
No, it's not hard at all. It's like fancy tubing. Uh-huh. And like I said, a lot of people never stand up. And what I like is it gets people out in nature. You can't really have your phone because you're going to like drop it or something, you know? And it makes people talk. It's a great date. It's I love because it's really mostly women and women will get their husbands to come out with them on the weekends, which I love because normally, you know, women are shopping or whatever. I've been doing this 9 years. So like I've seen this big change over the time of women being so much more adventurous. And they're doing this instead of going to lunch or shopping. It's just like, and everybody's so happy because nature's happy. It makes you feel good, you know? And so you can watch YouTube and learn how to do it really easily. And if nothing else, you just sit down the whole time and socialize with your friends.
You can tell that you have a lot of energy and passion for what you do. Is there anything in particular with the business that you just like absolutely love? Is it paddleboards in general? Is it just the idea of running and growing a business? Or what is it that kind of drives you and gives you so much energy to do what you do
Well, there's
every day?
like an answer I should give that would like be a good answer, but I can give you the real answer too. Anything you really love and you turn it into a business, it does become a business. So I don't hardly ever just go out paddleboarding unless I'm going with other people to like network. I never grab a paddleboard and just go out to the lake and be like, I'm going to go paddleboarding. Probably once a week though, I'm going out to network. So it's definitely not my first choice of activities ever. It used to be. Was like, I'm going to be a professional paddleboarder. I love this so much. But it taught me, like I love snowboarding too. Taught me I never want to be a snowboarding instructor because I'll learn to hate it. And I went every week last year and I love it. But as soon as I turn it into a job, it'll be a job.
Yeah.
So I like paddleboarding and all that, but it's definitely a job.
Okay. Well, maybe an interesting thing to talk about for a second, because a lot of people suggest, like, if you love something, you know, find a way to make a business out of it. But like you mentioned, there's the downside to that is when it's work, then it's work and you don't love it as much after that.
I would say you can do that with everything though. Like I said, pay off whatever your idea is, right? So,
Yeah.
Okay, I love scuba diving so much. So you go and become a master trainer of scuba diving and you get your trips paid for and your dives paid for, and then you're sick of it, move on to something else. But at least you got everything paid for, you know? But then there's something behind have a good job and pay for good experiences, you know? And that's my husband's mentality is like, I'd rather just pay for something rather than get a job and learn how to, you know, like to put all this effort into it. And that's what my trips are too. I notice people want to go on me with a trip. They don't want to have to do all the work for it. They just want to show up and have everything done, you know? So there's that two different mindsets. And I think I will turn everything into a job because I just want to pay it off and, you know,
Yeah.
I'm doing the traveling. I'm turning the traveling into a job.
Right.
Tahiti should never become a job.
That's right. I was telling my husband, I'm like, I can't complain that I'm going to Tahiti 3 times this year. But it is like, how am I going to make all my other businesses work, you know? So that part gets a little bit stressful. But priority's Tahiti, which doesn't make hardly any money, but that's the most fun. It makes me the most happy.
Yeah.
So the other things kind of are on the back burner, but they make a lot more money. So it's a good point to be at in life, right?
For sure.
Where you do the things that you like.
Definitely. So if not paddleboarding, is there anything else, any other aspect of the business that you like love the most? Like what do you love the most about what you do every day?
Well, I really like all my events and I really do like my summer classes. So that's when I get everybody together because I don't know if you talk to entrepreneurs, but it can be kind of a lonely job. Like You're sitting at home, you're trying to come up with ideas. So I love when I do get out there with people. It's a lot of work, but once I'm there, I'm like, okay, this is awesome. And then I could talk to people.
For sure.
I do like the social part of the events for sure.
And then are you able to work remotely for the most part if you want to? Just like with going on a trip, are you going to be able to run things from home?
My kids will do it.
Hopefully they listen.
I know. They're not listening.
In terms of the supply, are you just doing trial and error? Like
Totally.
50 is a nice round number. Why 50, not 49 or 52?
Well, and
were there some lessons learned where you overbought or underbought that you've kind of gotten this kind of honed in on?
Well, those first couple years where I was using my tax refund every year, there was only so many, and then the price goes up when you're not ordering as many. So I was probably doing 10 to 20. And now that I have more money to put into the business from Goat Yoga, I can do bigger orders and then the price goes down. So I ordered 50 this time and I should have done more, but it's hard to drop 12 grand and then like hope that you're going to make it back. But now I'm realizing it would be pretty easy to sell them, you know, but it's October when nobody's paddleboarding. And so I'm like, am I really going to be able to sell these? And after all these years, this is probably the first year I have the confidence to be like, no, I know I'll sell them. Because I get texts every day. Are you selling any boards? Are you selling any boards? You know? Even though you can get them at Costco for $400 or whatever, you know, people want to support me, which is pretty awesome.
That's cool.
And they're good boards and I sell them for $500. So it's not terrible, you know.
Right.
Are they branded Desert Paddleboards?
Yes, I say Desert Paddleboards with my logo. And funny story, I have no idea why they did this, but they put Paddleboards on my boards this year. A paddleboard company put Paddleboards, and they sent me a picture sideways, and I put it on Facebook. I put everything on social media so people know what's going on. And my friend's like, it says Paddleboards. I didn't even catch it. So before they shipped, I'm like, how did you do this? You're a paddleboard company. And she goes, I'm so sorry. With some winky faces. They put lots of winky faces. And so they reprinted it so it said Paddleboards and not Paddleboards. And my husband was freaking out, and I'm like, it'll be funny. Like, I don't stress. They're still nice boards. I can still sell them, but it'll be funny because it says Paddleboards. Luckily it switched. It has Paddleboards now.
And how do they compare to the Costco boards in quality and performance?
You want me to tell you the truth?
Yeah.
Okay, so Tower Paddleboards is the only paddleboard company made in the U.S., okay? Everything else is out of China. And so it's just how people brand them. I did buy some really cheap ones, like my wholesale on them was like $150. Popped really quick. So that would be comparable to like a $350 board on Amazon. So, and because I went over there and looked at the boards, I'm like, I need the thick fabric. I need the, so I looked down them and made sure that they were good. But it's totally, everything's from China. People put their brand on it. I think you got to trust somebody that like went through the whole manufacturing process and knows what you're getting, basically. So comparable, I would say they're a mid-range board because you can get boards, inflatable boards up around 1,000 that have a ton of fancy stuff on them. So they're a good Arizona board because there's a good chance you're going to beat it up. Like, you shouldn't have a nice board in Arizona because people are going down the river, you're going to the lake. Like, it's not easy to get the board someplace. If you're at Lake Powell and you have a nice houseboat and you have a fancy board, perfect. But when you're transporting them all over, they just get trashed.
Mm-hmm. And are these the blow-up ones, or are they like foam boards?
So I started with the foam boards, and they just got so trashed. And then I did epoxy boards. I ended up just selling all those. Those are like surfboards because if they get one ding, you have to sand them down and epoxy resin them. Yeah. And so I have all inflatable boards now, and that's all I do because they just like bounce off of rocks. They're just super durable. They're not as fast as like an epoxy board would be, but for Arizona, most people aren't doing that. Most people are just going down the river, running into rocks, like being idiots.
So solve my concern here. I'm picturing going down the river, and on the rapids, I pop my inflatable paddleboard on.
They're pretty durable. So like those cheap ones I told you about, they really did. After 3 or 4 times, it was like a cactus thorn in them. Yeah. And you can fix them. You can patch them. It's just a pain to patch them. And so these thicker material ones, they seriously just like bounce off the rocks. They're awesome. Yeah. So unless you like, I can't think of the things that they get. The most damage they get is when people strap them in. They strap them in super tight, and the straps will cut the board. So that there's a lot of like things that bother me about it. Like, people are transporting them back and forth, and so they'll fly out of people's cars. They still are fine, but I had to lose all emotional attachment with the boards because in the beginning I was like saving all this money and putting everything into it. And then if somebody would do something to it, I was like, how could you? And now I have no emotional attachment. I'm like, all right, just give me $50 for a patch, Yeah. And so that helps my stress wise for sure to not have any emotional attachment.
So they are responsible. If they don't tie it down right, it flies out of their car, off their roof.
Yeah, all my clients are really good. I only do word of mouth, like nothing on Craigslist or anything. Everybody's just super good. And my friend made me a shirt and it says Sup Nazi because Sup is stand-up paddleboard. And I have with the finger, the soup Nazi from Seinfeld. Yeah. So people are a little bit scared of me, like, okay, I got to be a good customer. And I'm like pretty good about telling people, this is how you be a good customer. You only text like 3 times, not 50. So my clientele is a really good clientele. And most of them know me from the paddleboard classes or from goat yoga. Yeah. So I'm not getting random people off the street, kind of thing. Gotcha. I just have really good clientele.
Yeah. And so you said it's pretty much all word of mouth, so you don't do any sort of like advertising or anything else to get
No, just like I do a lot of networking though.
Yeah.
So the networking for sure.
Expand on what you do like to network.
Well, so Tom Forsey was a corporate commissioner, and I went to high school with his wife, and he just called me and he's like, hey, we want you to come down to this big entrepreneur segment. Can you bring a goat and a paddleboard? And we both, I think they just want to make fun of us. But he goes, I think you would really benefit from this. It's a lot of big wig entrepreneurs. And I don't think I'm in that realm, And it's like, okay, cool. So we're going to go to that on Tuesday. And who knows what'll come for that. Maybe I'll network with some cool people. But I always say yes. Like I said yes to this podcast, I always say yes to whatever opportunity. Arizona Highways did a thing on goat yoga last week, and then I emailed them after and I said, hey, I have Mermaid Fitness coming up. I haven't heard back yet, but I'm going to keep pushing that so that, I had that in for goat yoga and maybe I can get it in for Mermaid Fitness or whatever, So I just keep, and I don't worry about people saying no. And that took a while to get to where I was, okay, whatever, the next person, you know?
That's awesome. Back to the paddleboard situation.
I know.
And that, what just reminded me of that is just, it sounds like you're able to stay relatively stress-free. I don't know if you've always been like that, but for a lot of people that could have felt like the end of the world.
Right.
That it was, and whatever, like you've found a way to put a positive spin on it. You posted about it, thought it was funny. Have you always had that mindset, or have you learned to kind of try to find the best out of every situation?
I think I had to turn 40. And then I had to have like my kids kind of hate me. Like kids kind of hate you about 17, right? And so you kind of go through this thing of like, okay, I just can't care anymore. Like it's too stressful to care about everything. Like your kids choose their own route. You have no choice in what route they choose. And I think that's about 20 where you're like, I gave you all this guidance and then they just do whatever the heck they want, you know? And then, so I think turning 40, I was like, I can't stress about all this. Like in order to do all this, I can't stress about it. And what's the worst case scenario? So there's not usually, it's usually not that bad, you know?
So the best advice is set a timer to the day you turn 40 and then all your problems
Well, it
will
gets
disappear.
easier when you turn 40, yes.
No, yeah, I like what you said. Just think about the worst case scenario, and it really usually isn't as bad as what your initial
So many
thoughts
people
are.
are like, what if? So I
Yeah.
started doing these lady ski trips, and it is like the number one thing that women say, what if? And I go, enough, you guys, because they're like, what if the plane doesn't take off? What if it's too cold? And I go, do you hear how this is complaining? And so and I've done a few Facebook posts about this, like, don't say what if. And so many moms are like, you're right. I'm always telling my kids, what if this happens? What if this happens to you? And it does sound like complaining when you hear it over and over, right?
Yeah, for
so stop
sure.
saying it. The worst thing probably isn't that bad.
Love it. Tell us about what your future plans are for desert paddleboards.
I don't know. So I really want to do these paddleboard vacations. It would be, now that I'm feeling more confident that I can sell these boards, then I think I'll reach out to more, like I've done a couple trade shows and I didn't do great. I didn't love sitting there all day, but I feel like if you do better, probably everything's online now. And so I would do better marketing stuff online maybe. So it'd be great if I was the importer because a lot of people don't know how to do that. And then I could just sell more stuff. And I could do teacher trainings for fitness stuff, but I don't know, maybe. I'm going to go with the paddleboard vacations. That's like my big exciting thing right now.
Yeah.
Stupid COVID would stop ruining everything. It would be great.
But it sounds like you really don't go off of like business plans. You just, when you have an idea, you go for it basically.
Well, the last like 3 years when we do these paddleboard classes, I'm like, you guys, you totally look like mermaids. You're beautiful. And then when that Bora Bora thing came up, I was like, I can market Mermaid Fitness. And so I didn't have a reason to do it before, but now I have a reason to really make. There's actually a mermaid convention in Los Angeles. I think I could sell my rectangular paddleboard mats to these mermaids for things for them to float on in their pools. Like, I really think I could market that. I'll go to the convention. I'll be like, this is your laying pad for your mermaid. I don't know, people will buy anything.
It's a brilliant idea. They'll buy it.
There's no dumb idea, and there's a niche market for everything, okay?
True.
And there is. I couldn't believe people are spending $1,000 on mermaid tails.
That's crazy.
Lawyers during the day, mermaid at night.
Who would have thought? Give some of our listeners who haven't heard the Goat Yoga episode, give us like a little lead into, I guess, where you were with desert paddleboards and what made you decide to team up with April and want to go start another business when it sounds like you're already doing such a good job with desert paddleboards.
Totally a joke. So like April had all these goats and I was teaching paddleboard yoga and nobody was signing up in October except for Canadians. And I was like, April, we should do goat yoga. So totally dressed up these goats, put it on Facebook. Social media is your friend, you guys. People will be like, you're on social media all the time. I'm like, well, you see my stuff, so you must be too. And so we put this goat yoga class on there. And
They say, I'm never on Facebook.
but I know everything going on in your life. And so the news stations all started picking it up. I think I tagged all the news stations. Always tag the news stations. You never know who's going to see it. And they came out and videoed a couple classes. Within 6 weeks, we were on USA Today. It's been 5 years of goat yoga, you guys. Every week we're like, sweet, it's still going. It's like top 10 things to do in Arizona. So I realized we started as a yoga class and now it's more tourism. And there's a lot more money in tourism than there is in yoga. And so that's what I've realized with all the paddleboards, everything. There's a lot of money in tourism and a lot of people come to Arizona for tourism. You wouldn't think they do, but there's a ton. Because our goat yoga classes, usually half of every class is from out of town. But we've had so many bloggers and influencers come because Visit Mesa brings them in, and that Discover Gilbert and all those. And so they put it on their TikToks or whatever. And then it always shows up what to do in Arizona, goat yoga. And it's a funny Instagram picture. And so that's kind of what I did. So the Witches Regatta I do at Tempe Town Lake, and everybody dresses up like witches. And we paddle around Tempe Town Lake, and it looks like you're flying because you have your paddle back. But again, Instagrammable. If I could come up with a whole business based on Instagram besides goat yoga, that's not a bad business model. What will people put on Instagram?
No, it isn't. Oh, I love it. I know you always have so many good things to say. Is there anything that we missed? Anything that you wanted to touch on that we haven't gone over yet?
I think that's all for now. Maybe next summer I'll have something new.
I was gonna say we'll have you on in a year from now to hear what else you have going on. So we're excited for that. Okay, well, before we close up, and I know you've done this before, we're gonna play that game with you again.
Okay.
Just as a refresher, how it works is we'll ask you 20 questions, and you have a minute.
Quick answer.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So I can't remember how many you and Sarah got, or you and April got, but we'll see if you're better on your own or with April. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Your most embarrassing moment.
Okay. Oh, I swam in New York City, that nasty river. But when it got out, I was covered in algae. And then people were taking pictures because I got third on that swim, and I was covered in algae for all these pictures. So I'm gonna go with that one.
Okay. If you could turn an inanimate object into life, what would it be?
Ice cream.
If you could swim in any liquid, what would it be?
Jello.
Conspiracy theory, you believe?
Oh, most of them right now.
Most ridiculous fact you know.
Largest goat yoga class, 385 people, 83 goats.
If you had to eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Nachos.
If you could switch places with someone for a day, who would it be?
Nancy Pelosi, because I just saw how good she does on day trading, and that's like, I'm kind of getting into day trading, and Nancy Pelosi's pretty good. Just for that, because I want to be rich for a day.
Favorite restaurant?
Jalapeno Bucks, because he hooks
there
me
we
up.
go. Well,
Yeah,
that's good.
Very nice.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Sarah, for coming on for the second time. It's always a pleasure to have a fun conversation with you and hear what's going on in your world.
Very inspiring.
Good, thanks. Just go for it, guys. Don't worry about what anybody thinks.
Yeah, no.
Pay it back.
That's the best advice, I think. Let our audience know where they can learn more about you and find out about Desert Paddleboards.
DesertPaddleboards.com. And then I'm on Instagram. It's like just a mix-up of everything. I changed it from a business to more like an influencer because people were like, why aren't you posting more paddleboard stuff? So it's just funny information about the day, deals going on, fun trips to go on, hikes, stuff like that.
Cool.
But the official is just DesertPaddleboards.com.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks again for coming on and sharing your advice with us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah, we'll catch you next week. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. Just a few things before we go. First off, if you or someone you know is an entrepreneur in the East Valley, we'd love to have you on the show. Please get in touch with us by emailing us at localhustlerspodcast@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram at localhustlerspodcast. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn for the latest news and updates. Also, if you enjoyed the show, please take a few seconds to rate and review and hit that subscribe button. It lets us know how we're doing and helps us grow so we can reach more locals, entrepreneurs, and help small businesses grow. Thanks, guys.